Greetings everybody, it's Amy from Amy Baughman Sew and Quilt, and the time has come where it's been mandated that everybody must wear a mask when they go out. I guess the best solution is don't go out, but some of us have to venture out, but so we're going to be safe about it. So here is my first disclaimer. This may not be the best mask, it may be not the right way, it's the right way how I make them. So I just thought I would share that. Whatever you use for a lining or an extra protection barrier is up to you. I am not picking or saying one is better than the other. It's just whatever you feel is good for your family. My only caution is not everything on Facebook is right or Pinterest is right. If you are cutting up furnace filters, and if you're cutting up vacuum cleaner bags, and if you're cutting up all this bizarre stuff, some may be good, some may not be good. I'm not saying that. Just be careful because a lot of these filters contain fiberglass. And this is my family. I don't want them breathing weird stuff. So please do your research. That's all I ask. Okay, now, this was one of the first masks. This is that Sharon made these for Ed. They have the loop of elastic that go over your head, right? Like this. Well, both loops go over your head. That's a good look. And it has a wire end to pinch the nose. So the CDC is recommending 2 layers of tightly woven cotton. This is 300 stitch count of fabric. They're recommending at least 200 or higher. If you go to an inexpensive discount store, then it may not be the super high quality. So make sure you're getting Quilt Shop quality fabrics. Make sure you know where they're coming from. If you're cutting up old sheets and old t-shirts, just be wary of the fact people have to breathe also through these masks. Air still has to move in these masks. So whatever you're picking as your fabric, this is the minimum, is 2 layers. The mask I'm going to be showing you how to make real easy has an opening in it. So these are kind of my prototypes, my first sewing prototypes. So these ones have the tie. This is just string. I'm making ties. They want the ties at the top. So up here at the top of the head, that's where they want the ties to go. And this also has a pinch in it. And I guess in a pinch it could be reversible, but we have these side pockets that are open that you can put liners in. Okay, and again, the liner of your choice. This one has the same liner option, but this is one continuous piece of elastic. Now, elastic doesn't go through an autoclave, and elastic is very hard to sterilize, if at all. So I think in the medical professional world, when they are making, you know, in inter-hospital type situations, they are preferring ties instead of elastics. But just for around the house, for yourself, when you go out, elastic is going to be fine because you'll be able to wash that at home if you can find some. So these are the basics masks. I'm going to walk you through how to make this in a couple easy steps. There's no extra pieces, there's no binding, there's no anything. We did this as simple as possible. So you're gonna need a few supplies other than fabric, elastic, cording, grosgrain ribbon, I did a video earlier on making your own ties using the bias binder foot and a bias tape maker, and those are both on YouTube. On the Amy Baughman Sew and Quilt channel. I think they're still floating through Facebook somewhere too also. Okay, so thread, we're going to use cotton thread. And I got wire ties, like bread ties. You can find rolls of this in a gardening department where it's green for tying up tomatoes. Some people are using welding, soldering wire. Some people are using floral wire and bending it. Some people are using chenille stems. Whatever you have that works for you is just enough. You want a nice firm pinch here though, and you don't want wires poking out and hurting anybody. So that's something else to think about. So other than fabric, those are your basic supplies. I'm going to show you how simple the pattern is. And it's one pattern. It's an adult pattern. I'm not a pattern drafter, so I'm not going through all that. But by changing the seam allowances, you can make them smaller or a little bit larger. So let me get prepped and I'm going to show you how to mass produce these guys quickly. All right, now we're ready to cut. So this is the pattern that you're going to download. It is not fancy. It is what it is. There's actually two different pieces here, two different patterns here. This larger piece is your main fabric. Then you're gonna fold this at the line and fold it in, and then cut out this piece for your lining, okay? So, and then these are strap sizes. And again, if your family got big heads, then you make them longer. If they're little people, you make them shorter. You just gotta test it and see what you like. So this is what your download is gonna look like. It's just an adult size. It seems to be kind of like 1/4 inch increments for, you know, small, smaller, smaller, you know, but the same shape. Just squeeze it in or take a bigger seam allowance and trim it, however your brain thinks. All right, the easiest way to cut these out is to stack your fabrics. You need 2 pieces of the main fabric, and you need 2 pieces for the lining. So I can cut almost 6 layers with my rotary cutter, but that's me, so I don't know. So the main fabric, I'm just gonna push it down here, and I'm gonna cut it out. Now I know I'm wasting fabric at the moment, so you're gonna cut around it. When it's time to cut your lining, you're going to fold that tab in or fold it under, whatever works, and your lining piece is shorter. So you can see in these brown butterflies, see if we can make a comparison too. So this is the lining, and this is the main fabric. So when I superimpose them on top of each other, you can see the lining is 1.5 inches, the main fabric, I'm sorry, is 1.5 inches larger than my lining piece. And what that is for is so when we roll this, this is going to make the casing for your cord or your elastic. And then this piece floats inside to slide your liner through. This is simple sewing, and I've tried to make this without any extra pieces, so it's easy. So I have one kind of already sort of stitched. This is Ed's Coast Guard ship here, had some fabric printed. Right sides together, you're going to sew the nose piece. You're going to go to your serger, and if you don't have a serger, just seam over cast. This is the lining. Seam over cast or serge these outside pieces. Same thing, you're going to sew the nose piece of your main fabric, and you're going to serge these outside pieces. So I don't know if you cut everything out, you serge all your short ends, make 100 masks, come back and sew all your center pieces. You can do it assembly style, or you can make one at a time, whatever you're comfortable with. At this point, we're always going to sew right sides together. You want to make sure you match these side seams. Now I have a real tiny seam allowance here because I didn't want to take a piece of the ship out. So how about that for fussy cutting? So you're going to do match your seams, top and bottom. Now, if you're doing a deeper seam here, you may want to snip into that so that curve bends easier and, you know, it kind of breaks the seam and lets it open up. So you're going to put these right sides together, and you're going to stitch all the way across the top and all the way around the nose, and we're going to flip it. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to do this, and we're going to sew it together. All right, so I have my 2 pieces and they're right sides together. I did switch up the pieces a little bit so you could see a higher contrast. So I went ahead and I snipped into my seams just to kind of so they'll break, right? Not to your stitch line, but just to the stitches. I have one seam going to the left, one seam going to the right, so they nest. If you want to press this seam open, you are welcome to it, but I am not going to take the time to do it. So I'm just going to sew my seam allowance. And again, it's about 1/4 inch. Just be consistent. If you like it a little bigger, then make it a little bigger. And don't forget to backstop the beginning and back stitch so it's nice and snug in there. Okay, so hang on, I lost my wire tie somewhere. Thank you. All right, so this is my bread tie, right? No big deal. Now, I don't want to take the time to make a casing or do anything. So what I'm going to do is round out my nose piece, get them all tucked into each other. And if you have the fabric, you can cut these on the bias, and it probably, well, then the other part, never mind, don't cut it in the bias. So I would take 2 seconds to press this at this point. So once you have it kind of rolled back, I just take your wire, whatever you have, and I just kind of bend it in half. I'm going to tuck it right up underneath there and hold it and fold it so it is pushed up against that seam. And it happens kind of somewhat organically. And now I'm going to top stitch it. So it's just, now if your needle sews through it, it's not a big deal at this point. And I can tell you this one's not going to be pretty by the time I'm done sewing at an angle. So again, they're not super heavy. And you can stop if you want and make sure it's all pushed up in there. But you can feel it where it is, so you'll know if you're sewing through it or not. And once it kind of is in there, just kind of, the shape just kind of molds right to what you're doing. Okay, so the nose piece is done. We're going to flip it. Right sides together, and we're going to match that bottom seam. Push one to the left, one to the right. And if you guys do not have these magic pins yet, they are the best pins I've ever used in my life. And now I'm going to sew this seam. And again, I'm going to back stitch. And please don't sew over pins. Overshot that a little bit. And now I'm going to turn it. And again, you can press it if you want to press it, but you can see our shape here. You can see our little nose pinch is working. So this is where I don't have any extra pieces, which makes it kind of nice. So this light color is my lining because it's shorter. I'm going to fold and fold, and that's going to be my casing. But before I do that, I'm going to need the elastic now. My trusty assistant Ed here behind the camera. So remember, we want that tie at the top of the head. Now the elastic is a continuous loop, I should say that. But I just put my elastic in here, or your tie, or your ribbon, whatever you're doing, and I'm going to fold it, and I'm going to fold it. Now the key is to sew right along here without sewing in your elastic, and this stays open to put your extra layer of protection in there if that's what you choose to do. Now, if you want to make the casings and then put the elastic through, or the ribbon through, if that makes you happy, then that's what you do. And see, I'm keeping this away because I want to be able to put a liner in there. And again, back stitch, stop and start. Pull your elastic, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put it in here, and we don't want to get it caught. I mean, this takes a second, and then it's a little easier when you're laying down flat. There we go. You can just pull that away, Pull your elastic away. Oh, that wasn't good. Just broke my thread. Trust me, it's much easier when you're not worried about where the camera is. And then you'll tie off your elastic and you're going to slide it through. Oops, did I catch it? You're going to slide it through. I got too much elastic here, but I don't want to cut it and waste it. So you're just going to tie off your elastic and then just slide the knot to the inside. And this is where you have so there's my lining with my insides. So when the elastic is pulled, the idea that this pulls close to your face because you want it snug to your face. It doesn't do you any good if that elastic doesn't gather these sides in. You have your nose pinch. So 2 simple pieces, you get everything done at one time. The double fold with the elastic in it, fold with the elastic in it. You have your liner that you can take whatever you're taking. I'm just gonna put this piece of fabric in there for right now. You're just gonna be able to push it through, pull it through the other side and make it just the way you want it. So whether it's an elastic or a tie, it's very simple. It's 2 easy pieces. 1 cut with an extension. There's no extra binding. There's no extra piece here. So these are simple and quick. And as you're making some for your family, don't forget about, you know, firemen, EMS, nursing home workers, especially in some of our small towns that may not quite be on the list for a large quantities of protective gear. So makes think of your neighbors. But there you go, sewing community. So we're going to post the pattern, right? So it'll be a downloadable PDF on amysews.com, and I'll put the video on YouTube, and there'll be a link in YouTube to download the pattern. Okay, let's go, mask warriors. Let's get them made up, because the more you know, the more you sew.